Hello again, everyone. Today we are going to discuss one of the most fun parts of English. And this is the parts of words and how we create new words and how we create words themselves in the first place. So today we're just going to be playing around with beginnings and endings of words to show us how the English language itself is structured. So let's talk about a few of these methods. First, we have what we call the prefix. This is a small addition to the beginning of the root word, which changes the meaning. For example, indecisive, or unlucky, or microchip, or multinational. Here, all of the root words, decisive, lucky, chip, national, have had their meanings changed by the addition of a prefix. Now, if that's a prefix, we have something else that I'm sure you've seen at the end of a word, and we call these suffixes. Now, suffixes serve a very different role in English. The suffix changes the part of speech. It's what tells us if a word is a verb, an adverb, an adjective. If it is a verb, what tense is the verb? Is it in the present tense? Is it in the past tense? Is it in a continuous tense, a perfect tense? This is how we do all of it. So, for example, we can take a small word and we can change it a bunch of different ways. What word should we use? I've got it. What about help? So if I take the word help, let's look at some ways that I can change it. I can say help. I can be helpful, or I can be helpless. I can also say something like helpfully, or helper, helping, helped. Now, let's look at another example. Imagine. If I play with the ending of the word imagine, I can have an imagination, a noun, or I can be imaginative, an adjective. However, let's look at another word, to satisfy. Now, to satisfy has a lot of additional forms. For example, satisfaction, a noun. Satisfactory, an adjective. Satisfied, also an adjective. Satisfying, also an adjective. Or satisfactorily, an adverb. So, you see there are three different adjectives which we can coin from the root verb to satisfy. But what's the difference between satisfying, satisfied, and satisfactory? To be satisfied is to be pleased with someone or something. For example, in the phrase, a satisfied customer, or I am satisfied with work today. However, satisfactory is a little bit different, and let's look at some examples using satisfactory. I can have a satisfactory mark, or a satisfactory performance. And here, it means that it meets some requirements. It meets the minimum standard, the minimum requirements. And here, satisfactory may or may not be acceptable to the speaker or the listener, or it may or may not be desired. Some people think that satisfactory is just barely good enough, and some people think that it is just fine how it is. So be aware that this word may be used in two different ways. Also, we have the word satisfying, and some examples we can use this in are a satisfying job, or a satisfying experience. Here, satisfying means pleasurable, enjoyable. It made us happy. So now let's examine some prefixes in a little bit more detail. And let's examine how these change the meanings of the words that they're attached to. So first, I want to bring your attention to the following list of words. If I say, for example, friendly and unfriendly, or likely and unlikely, reliable and unreliable, crowded or uncrowded, spoilt or unspoilt, conventional or unconventional, equal or unequal, pleased or unpleased, and suitable or unsuitable. Here, adding the prefix un to the word in question means that we're taking the opposite meaning. Whatever the adjective means, un, combined with the adjective, means the opposite. But now let's look at some verbs. For example, pack and unpack, do and undo, wrap and unwrap, and lock and unlock. Here, un is serving a very, very similar purpose. If when we attach un to an adjective or an adverb, it means the opposite of whatever the adjective and adverb means, here when we attach it to a verb, it means to do the opposite action. To undo something is to do the opposite action of what you did initially. Now let's look at another prefix, dis, in the following examples. For example, agree and disagree, appear and disappear, approve and disapprove, connect and disconnect, respect and disrespect, charge and discharge, like and dislike, honest and dishonest, obey and disobey, satisfy and dissatisfy, satisfaction and dissatisfaction, orientation and disorientation, and organization and disorganization. Now, we also have other prefixes which operate similarly to dis, and I'd like to talk about those now as well, before explaining all of them together. The prefix ill, for example, in the words legal and illegal, logical and illogical, literate and illiterate, liberal and illiberal, and legible and illegible, as well as the prefix im, like in the words patient and impatient, possible and impossible, mature and immature, moral and immoral, polite and impolite, movable and immovable, probable and improbable, and practical and impractical. We also have the prefix in, for example, in the words convenient and inconvenient, competent and incompetent, correct and incorrect, flexible and inflexible, tolerant and intolerant, sensitive and insensitive, complete and incomplete, accurate and inaccurate, accuracy or inaccuracy, credibility or incredibility, and visible or invisible. And one more with the same meaning, ear. For example, in the words regular and irregular, responsibility and irresponsibility, relevant and irrelevant, rational and irrational, and resistible and irresistible. And all of these prefixes form opposites. They form, just like un, the other meaning. For example, responsible can be trusted with responsibilities or to perform certain tasks, and irresponsible cannot be trusted. Now, we have more prefixes than this in the English language. We also have the prefix mis, like in the words behave and misbehave, conduct and misconduct, connect and misconnect, understand and misunderstand, management and mismanagement, pronounce and mispronounce, and fortune and misfortune. Here, the prefix mis means to do something badly or incorrectly or wrongly. Whatever task you were supposed to do, or whatever task you are trying to do, you didn't do it well. So you use mis in front of it. In addition, we have the prefix re, which means to do again or in another way. For example, in the phrase build and rebuild, or examine and re-examine, affirm, reaffirm, cycle, recycle, fresh and refresh, arrange, rearrange, view, and review. In these words, you are simply doing something again. We also have the prefix for, like in the words cast and forecast, check, forecheck, know, foreknow, name, forename, see, and foresee. Here, the prefix for means in front of or before. For example, in the word forecast, usually used in the phrase weather forecast. It tells you what the weather is going to be in the next week, 10 days, and it's usually wrong. And the last prefix that we're going to discuss today, post. Like in the words graduate and postgraduate, script and postscript, modern and postmodern, and finally date and postdate. So post here means after, or after a certain point. For example, the difference between graduate and postgraduate. Postgraduate here, someone who is after graduation, or someone who has already graduated, is used to talk about people who go for their master's degrees or their doctoral degrees in universities. Or date and postdate. If you postdate, you write down a date which is after or later than the current date.